It was hot in more ways than one at Giants practice during OTAs today. We'll talk about it next on the Big Blue Breakdown live. Hello again, everybody. I'm Paul Dottino, and welcome to the Big Blue Breakdown live. So glad you could join us tonight for another edition of the program, a special Thursday edition. As you know, we usually come to your way on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. But because of the Giants' media schedule, they had an open practice today with media sessions. We figured it was best that we have you folks on, or we bring the program to you folks tonight. So that's why we are here on a rare Thursday night. Now, we're going to be here for at least the next hour. We may wind up being here a little longer than that. I'm not so sure. We're going to see how it goes. But the bottom line is this. The New York Giants practiced in just oppressive heat today. It was 87 degrees. Heat index was over 90. There's haze and smog in the air. Obviously, you guys know what's going on if you're in the metropolitan area. You know about what happened with the fires from Canada, which apparently wound up sending a whole bunch of smoke down to the New York metropolitan area. So the air quality was not very good today. But nonetheless, the Giants were outside to practice. The thing about it is, when it gets really nasty like that, tempers start to flare. So tempers did flare a little bit. So let's just get that out of the way, because I'm sure you guys read about it either online or on the internet. Near the end of practice, it was a spirited conclusion to practice. Brian Burns, the edge rusher, and also James Hudson, one of the offensive linemen. He's one of the backup tackles. They got into a bit of a shouting match, and they got to be hot tempers. After Burns went over to the sideline and left the field, then on the next snap, Illuminor and Thibodeau, they kind of got into a little bit of a joing match as well. Hudson decided that he wanted to chime in with some words of his own. And then Brian Burns came off the sideline, and it was a fracas, okay? A very spirited fracas. And a lot of words were exchanged. A lot of people came together, and it was just, one of those typical training camp issues that happens. Only this time, it was about a month or so before training camp, again, because of hot, sweltering conditions. Brian Burns afterwards, talked about it with the media and said, look, tempers got a little bit hot. Weather was hot. It's competition. It's good that we have competition. It's good that this team has a bunch of dogs that have fight in them, that have a little bit of edge to them. And so that's the deal. Although Burns did say, hey, the last thing in the world that you want to do is have something that distracts from the work and doesn't allow you to get your work done. And so apparently, Brian Daboll had that conversation with the guys. Brian Burns also, talked about it with his teammates. And so that's it. It's done. And the Giants move on. Now, what do we know about today's practice session? Well, I got a bunch of notes here. Let me go through these with you, because there were quite a number of things that happened during practice today. First up, let me explain one thing. In just a little bit, we're going to have Howard Cross come in. I just did an interview with him a little bit earlier. He is one of the Giants legends who has come to practice and spoken to the team after the sessions, because Brian Daboll, the Giants head coach, is encouraging guys from the Giants 100 to come back to the complex and impart some wisdom on the players, hoping that, maybe they'll pick up something that will help the team somehow move in the right direction this season. So we will be hearing from Howard Cross in just a bit. He's got some observations about the new team, and also very much interested in hearing what Howard had to say about the team and his remembrances of when he played and what he wanted to impart to them in terms of wisdom. All right, that's coming up in just a little bit. But before we get there, let's review today's practice session, and I will get to your comments and all of your chats and perhaps your phone calls and whatever else in just a bit. But let's start with today's practice session. First things first, really good day for the speed rushers, Thibodeau, Burns, and also Carter in terms of getting into the backfield. They did it an awful lot. But folks, I want to make very clear to you, and I mentioned this earlier today on the Big Blue Kickoff live show as well, and that is this, okay? The OTAs are non-contact practice drills, okay? And by the way, Tudo, there you are already coming through. Tudo is always with us. He follows us no matter what day, no matter what time. Oh, thank you, Tudo, as always. You are the man. Him and his Italian rugby team. What has he got here? He goes, greetings from Omi and my mates currently training in Swansea, Wales. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. Well, greetings back to you guys, and hopefully you have a safe trip and a safe game, and we certainly do appreciate that. Okay. Now, back to what we're talking about in terms of the practice. It's my belief, because OTAs don't have any contact, it really doesn't make a lot of sense to talk about, quote, potential sacks. Now, when they run their plays during these non-contact OTAs, the coaches will blow their whistle if they believe the play would have resulted in a sack. And then they call it off, and then they re-snap the ball and do another play. So this happened a number of times today. Carter got in the backfield. Burns got in the backfield a couple of times. Thibodeau got in the backfield. But here's my point. It's easy to say, well, that was a would-be sack. But how do you know for sure when none of the players are allowed contact? Which means the running backs can't pick them up, the tight ends can't pick them up, and the offensive linemen are not allowed to block them. So to me, I appreciate the speed and the athleticism that you will see from these pass rushers when they're getting off at the snap. That's something you can see with your eyes. But to start crediting these guys with, quote, would-be sacks doesn't make sense when nobody's allowed to block them. So I appreciate that Carter, Burns, and Thibodeau all had very nice days today with speed rushes and explosion into the backfield. But again, nobody is allowed to block them. So I really don't like to talk too much about, quote, would-be sacks. These phantom sacks are just not real. So let's talk about what we can assess from 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 drills in what really is a passing camp, where the only thing that you can possibly do, in all honesty, the only thing you can possibly do is grade skill position players. That's all you can do. You can't do anything else. All right. So let's go through it. In 7-on-7s, which started the practice session, Russell Wilson threw, and I'm only going to give you the highlighted plays, the plays that, kind of sparked some eye openers and some jaw droppers. Russell Wilson had a nice completion to Theo Johnson. He then had a sweet completion to Jalen Hyatt, who reached up and made a nice stab, plucking the ball out of the air. Jackson Dart with a nice completion to Amir Smith Marset, who, by the way, has done a nice job as a receiver during spring drills. We already know he's a terrific kickoff returner, but he's also done a nice job as a receiver. All right, who else? Well, let's see. In the next set of drills, well, let me go back before I go to the next set. Jameis Winston had a 40-yard bomb on a post to Darius Slayton for a touchdown, and that ball could not have been thrown any better. He also had a sweet completion to a backup tight end, Jermaine Terry. Finally, in that 7-on-7 session, Cordell Flott, who's also had a very good spring, had a very nice pass deflection. In the next segment, it was 11-on-11s. Winston hit Daquan Felton, who made a very sweet stab on his reception. Defensively, the star was Elijah Chapman, who knocked down a ball at the line of scrimmage, and Trey Hawkins, who down the sideline while guarding Felton was able to intercept Jackson Dart. Hawkins had really good position on the play, blanket coverage, turned around, reached up, and made a really nice athletic interception. That was the end of that 11-on-11 period in terms of the highlights. In the next 11-on-11, Cordell Flott once again knocked down a pass play. So another pass defense for Flott. He had 2 during the course of the day. And then the final 11-on-11, you had Wilson hitting Hyatt on another nice pass, also hitting Theo Johnson for another sweet completion. Then Jackson Dart hits Smith Marset. These are all the better plays of the practice that we saw. And then finally, defensively, Dane Belton with an interception as Wilson tried to hit Slayton over the middle. I don't think you ever saw Belton, who was playing in center field, and he cut the ball off and made a very clean pick. That's Dane Belton's 3rd interception, by the way, of the spring practices. And then Malkari Page, an undrafted rookie safety out of Michigan, intercepted Jackson Dart on a forced pass down the sideline. I thought Dart probably should have thrown the ball away, but instead he tried to force it down the sideline, and it got intercepted. So those were the highlighted plays during the course of practice today. And hey, you know what? I'm glad to say the Giants didn't have anybody get sick. They didn't have anybody have to leave practice early or be dehydrated or have to go inside for fluids or IVs. They didn't have any problems. Conditioning was good, and everybody came through unscathed. So that was certainly something on the positive side of the ledger for the Giants at practice today. Now, they will not have an OT practice tomorrow, okay? They will have the day off. And then, in fact, they get the whole weekend off, and they won't be back on the field for another OTA until, as I look at my schedule and my calendar, Monday. Monday will be the next OTA practice. There will not be another, open practice for the media until next Thursday. Now, the reason I mention that is because given that these OTAs are really, like I say, they're watered down passing camps. There's not a lot of detail and not a lot of real beef to gain out of these things. It doesn't pay to do a program next Wednesday when, there's nothing there really beefy to deal with. So what we're going to do is we're going to be back next Thursday. So let me let you know about this right now. We'll be back with another Big Blue Breakdown live next Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on this YouTube channel with the New York Giants on SI coverage. Next Thursday at 8 p.m. Now, why? Because that's the next open media practice, which also will have media sessions, press conferences, and things to talk about and things to at least discuss with you guys. Because quite honestly, again, OTAs, they're bland, folks. I'm not going to lie to you. OTAs are bland. And there's just not a whole lot of beef there. And I know that, there are people who are going to want to make something out of that. But there's just not. All right, so that's what we're going to do next Thursday. Now, as for the press conferences today, there were a number of individual players, and let me go through my notes here as I have them all on my machine, my other computer, as I have the opportunity to discuss it with you. And let's see here. What do we have? And in just a couple of minutes, we'll bring on Howard Cross, and hopefully you guys will really enjoy some of what Howard has to say. Iman Perry, hello. The Big Moo, hello, for sure. Armand Dudo says very bland. That's exactly what OTAs are. It's a flag football passing camp. That's what they are. Too many people get all wrapped up in this. I laugh my behind off at people who actually keep passing stats. There are people who actually keep stats during OTA snaps, which is one of the most hysterical things I've ever seen. But they do. I guess they got to show everybody how smart they are. I don't understand it. But anyway, some of the conversations today, we told you about Brian Burns discussing the fracas at the end of practice. That was basically the most important thing that Brian was able to talk about. He did say that Abdul Carter's everything he was expecting. He's very twitchy, very quick, and says the defense is definitely all improved all around because of the talent they've added in the draft and in free agency, and also believes very much that Adebo and Holland are going to greatly enhance the secondary, and says that he loves the fact that he, Carter, and Thibodeau are going to be able to be three pass rushers that they can mix and match and do a whole bunch of really cool stuff with them. So that was good stuff out of Brian Burns today. A couple other guys who talked, Wan'Dale Robinson, and of course, Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, in all honesty, every time we talk to him, he just oozes with positivity. He's a pro's pro. He is a teammate to all of the players, not just the guys on offense, not just the skill position players, but Russell Wilson has gone out of his way to show his incredible work ethic and professionalism to everybody on the team, saying that the more he does with all of the other players, the better off the team is going to be. That it's important to have chemistry with the entire team, the entire locker room, and that's how they have to push to go in the same direction. So it's a lot of the same stuff we've heard from Russell Wilson over the course of the last few months. So there's really not a whole lot to add in terms of his press conference today. What I will want to talk about briefly, Wan'Dale Robinson. Robinson did say something very interesting. He did say that he thinks there's a chance that this year he may get to play a little bit more outside receiver and may also get an opportunity to go deep a little bit more than he has. As you know, he's been the Giants' slot guy, and usually he's catching 6-yard passes, and then the defense converges on him, and there's not much there. He's thinking he's going to be able to be more involved in the passing game, and they'll be able to open up a little bit more in terms of what he does in the playbook. He said Wilson's deep ball drops right in the bucket, and that his other throws come in like a pillow. They are very easy to catch. So I think that's very interesting. He did say that when he and Slayton first got together with Wilson down in Atlanta after Wilson signed with the Giants, turns out Wilson turned out to be much better than they even thought They've been watching him on tape. They've been watching him on TV. They knew he was 36 years old. Then they get to meet him, and they start throwing with him, and they were pleasantly surprised at how good Wilson really is at this point of his career. So I thought that was a rather interesting comment by Wan'Dale Robinson. Let me see, is there anything else that I can pick out of this that would be really, really interesting for you? I think, let's see. Mike Kafka would not address the potential of calling plays this year. He was asked about it again today and said whether you're calling them or not calling them, every year you learn something about the game and about yourself. He's perfectly happy doing whatever he's going to do, but no decision has been made yet. So basically, he was able to avoid that answer or that question, if you will, because there was really nothing else really to say. Let's see what else before we get to Howard Cross. I think that's about it for now. I got a few other tidbits that maybe we'll give you after we hear from Howard. Now, head coach Brian Daboll decided after last season's rough year, and it was difficult, right? 3-14, folks, that he would tap into some of the Giants' legends to see if there was something that they could tell these players about Giants tradition that could possibly turn things around. So throughout the spring, he's invited these guys to come to practice, watch practice, and then after practice is over, break the team down and have a conversation. So tight end Howard Cross, as you guys know, one of my broadcast teammates, he's been on the Giants broadcast team now for nearly 20 years. He was a part of the Super Bowl 25 team that beat the Bills, was also part of the Super Bowl 35 team that lost to the Ravens. And so, with Cross's credentials, it was only natural for Brian Daboll to put him on the list as one of the legends who needed to address the team.
I think that Brian's kind of had that. I think I did it his first year, and then it was quiet a couple of years, and maybe other guys were doing it. And he asked me, he saw me at the Giants golf outing, and he says, "Hey, would you be willing to speak to the team? Are you coming to practice?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be a practice coach. I'll be whatever you want me to say." And he didn't really give me. Kind of said like, "Yeah, just be your authentic self and tell them what you think." And I said, "Okay, I'll tell them what I think." So it's kind of how it went.
Well, when you went to the practice and you saw what was going on with the players and then had to speak with them afterwards, what kind of reaction do you think you got from them? Do you think you connected with them? Is it hard to do sometimes because it's a different generation of player? Obviously, you already have a son who's in the National Football League now.
First off, I give speeches to a lot of different groups, a lot of different organizations, whether, business organizations, sports organizations, kids groups. So talking is kind of like what we do. We do it on TV and radio and everywhere all the time. Connecting with guys, I think, is different in the sense of you give the message that means something to you, and it's up to them to receive it. At the end of the day, you can try to connect to them, try to be there, try to make some interaction. But at the end of the day, if you're passionate about something, you should be able to speak freely, and whoever is willing to hear it is going to hear it.
Mm-hmm. Did you go into the practice with a preconceived idea of what you wanted to say, or did you go there to observe and then just speak freely off of what you saw and what you were reacting to?
No, I think, we kind of talked about it a little bit. I asked him like what he felt, was important. I said, what do you feel is important? And he so much, we got to, talk about some protecting our house and home field. I like that. And he goes and talk about hard work. And, it's typical what a coach would say he would want you to talk about. So for me, like talking about it, I was like, okay, well, I just thought about what I think is important in my own home, what I think is important for my own son and my daughter, for what I think is important for, any corporation or anything. And that's kind of how the speech was developed. You tell some stories of how you were raised. You tell some stories of what was important to you at the moments in time. Tell some stories about, how you got where you are. And then to end it up, you tell them how important it is to be in the spot that you're in.
Well, I would not ask you to repeat it. That would be unfair. That would be unfair to do. But if there was,
probably wouldn't be something you want to play out loud either. They did a really nice job cleaning it up for me, so I'm glad they did that.
Of course, as the Giants obviously put some highlights of it up on Giants.com. If there's one thing, though, that of all the things that you said during the few minutes that you had to talk to the group after it was over, if there's one thing that you want more than anything to stick, to have made an impact, to have become memorable to the group, what do you think that one item would have been?
I mean, I told him it's like it's our our house, our team, our family. That's what it is. You have to remember that. I think that's more than anything else. I don't know if guys, the world's different. Everybody's exchanging jerseys and we're all, kumbaya. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not how I play ball. Like we're out here to battle. It's a battle. Like you can hang out in the off season. If that's what you guys want to do. But, my college roommate not in exchange jerseys. So I'm just saying that if it's anything, realize that put on your uniform. This is your uniform. This is your unit. This is your house. This is your home. Fight to defend it. Like, that's what it is. And it's a constant battle. And I also told them, probably the most important thing in football, know your stuff, man. Like, be on top of everything. The amount of time we put in studying and looking through and the huge ass scouting reports that we looked at, I'm like, those things were like, the lifeblood of what we did. I said, if you don't know your stuff, go home because you're not helping anybody. And that's pretty much the message.
Howard, we've been around this organization for a long time, and there have always been alums who have been around periodically. I'm going to ask you to go back to when you were a rookie. When you came into this organization, do you recall some retired guys who had an impact on you with maybe a visitation or something they said? I mean, you had a lot of veterans on your team, don't get me wrong, guys who you could look up to in the locker room. But were there alums that kind of, gave you a little bit of a spark about some particular idea or thought that you were able to take into your career?
I think mostly it was guys like Harry, because Harry was always around, getting to know him and the legendary Harry Carson, such a great player, a great linebacker, and the passion he felt about the team, the captain. I think it was George Martin, great man, great player, but great man, and his longevity and how he committed to playing and doing what he did for so long. I'm like, that was impressive talking with him. And then, you have to think about other guys that was like, Gifford was around all the time. He spoke a lot to us. There were so many guys that were around to talk to in the radio booth. They would come out and talk to us and spend a lot of time with us. So you got to see how the Giants were a family, and like the once a Giant, always a Giant thing kind of stuck out to us because these guys were around. They didn't seem to go away. They were just part of the fabric of the team, part of the fabric of the day-to-day lives, and it meant a lot. And beyond all of them, and I do mean I respect and love all those players. Beyond all of them, was Wellington Mara. Like watching him be a part of every practice, watching him be a part of everything we did, watching him when you walked into the locker room, he was there to shake your hand, win or loss. And he was just a constant, and it just became like we said. I had dinner with him out at his home, and I was honored that he would even invite me. It was just it made it family. Getting to know the Tisch family and spent time with Bob, when Mr. Tisch when he was alive. Spent time with John and Steve, a lot. So, and doing charity work for both families and being around them, that it just makes it family.
So, Howard, you've seen this now for so many years and from different angles as a player, as a broadcaster, over the course of the decades. There is something to be said, like when Eli said, once a giant, always a giant. There is something about this organization, the tradition, the history, the people, the class, the respect. I try to tell people all the time, maybe you can't touch it and feel it, but it's something that's real.
Yeah, it is something that's real. It's harder and harder to be with a team forever, for your entire career. That's one, because contracts and guys coming in and free agency and everything, it's going to be harder. But for the guys that are able to stick it out for a large part of their career, they're always a giant. For guys that are barely here but for a little bit, seems like they're always a giant, because I see guys that played 1 or 2 years here showing back up. I see guys that played their entire career here showing back up. So again, once a giant, always a giant. It's one of the original NFL franchises. One of the biggest commitments to football came from this franchise. The football we play with is kind of named after our nickname, the Duke. So, we have a lot to do with the game of the NFL, and we have a lot to do with the history of the NFL. When I say we, I don't mean we as in the players, but we as in the Giants, part of that family and that organization. That means a lot. When guys take the time to take a little study and to look around and try to, grasp what the league is, where it came from, where it is today, where it might be going, they'll see that in the forefront of that will be the Giants.
All right, Howard. Well, at the same time, even though the Giants are the Giants, the players do turn over. The roster does change. And it seems as though the last couple of years, each offseason, about a third of the team has changed and been overturned. Tremendously impressive draft class by most experts. You had a chance to see some of these rookies out of practice over the course of the last couple of weeks, and some of the new veterans they brought in. What kind of vibe are you getting, although we all know that spring football is not the same as what they do in September?
Well, look, they're all happy to be back. They're all excited to be teammates and to be together. They're making some plays, albeit all in pajamas. I appreciate the pajamas that they wear. And you're restricted by a lot of things. And I'm not, get off my yard guy. They're not able to get any, pass rush versus the D-line, O-line. They're not able to do any kind of contact. It's basically a glorified 7-on-7 practice with just having some linemen there to look good. There's nobody on the ground ever, which is a good thing, because they're not in any pass to protect themselves. But they seem to be working together really well. They seem to be excited to be out there. They're moving pretty quick. So a lot of guys, most of the guys are healthy. So that is probably the sounding board for everything. And it's going to be great to see, the thing that's has been the hamstring for the team for so long is, can they keep their offensive line? Can they keep 5 to 7 guys super healthy and super productive to make the team, move along? Because I think that is like the wheel that they need to keep on the ground constantly. Is you got to keep those 5 guys up front ready to go, because if you don't, a lot of other things won't work either.
Yeah, we know it always starts with the line, Howard. That's something that's never going to change. And if they can hold up, they got themselves a new situation at quarterback between the older veteran and Russell Wilson, who's very accomplished and done a lot of things in this league. And then obviously Jameis Winston's here, and we know Jackson Dart's here, and even Tommy DeVito is still here. You played with a number of different quarterbacks in your time. I mean, heck, you went with multiple quarterbacks to 2 Super Bowls. So how do you view this Giants quarterback room in terms of how they will try to develop Jackson Dart as he sits and watches the older guys in the room try to go out there and teach him some things?
Well, you really hope that they're not developing Jackson Dart, and not in a mean way. That means that the Giants are playing well. That means that they're very productive offensively. And if they're productive offensively, then all of a sudden he can sit for a longer period of time.
Right.
If he has to come in game 6, game 7, game 8, game whatever, midway through the season, then they're not having that great of a year. And it's like, well, let's get a kid a shot. I don't, I'm hoping that that's not the case. I'm hoping the offensive line holds. I'm hoping that Russell is able to get the ball out. Russell Wilson is a down the field deep ball thrower, which that takes time. You don't just throw it down the field off of one step. That's usually 3 to 5 or out of a shotgun, and it takes time to get the ball down the field. It takes time for the receiver to get open. The entire process, the maturation of everything has to work together. And what that takes is an offensive line. If the line can hold up, they'll be able to get the ball down the field. Some of the other passes will work as well, but that's his big thing is the deep ball. So let's see if we can hold up front to give him time to get that ball down the field.
There are 2 other rookies from this class that a lot of people call into Big Blue Kickoff about, a lot of people call into this show about, and fans stop me on the street all the time about. They want to know about Abdul Carter and the impact that he'll have on this defense. They want to know about Cam Scatterboo, who is just tougher than nails and wants to pound that rock every chance that he gets. Your thoughts about what they can add to this team going forward, because the Giants certainly were in need of improvement in the running game, and anytime you can add to the pass rush, it's a good thing.
Well, as far as the pass rush goes, you got Lawrence up front, Thibodeau, Burns on the outside, and now you bring in Mr. Carter. Now you got 4 guys that are, you can't double team a guy. So that is going to be a problem regardless of where each one of them plays, where they move them around. I think of back with O.C. Tuck and JPP playing together. Even Strahan was in that group. So like when you have 4 or 5 guys that can pass rush at the same time, they all got their hand in the dirt. It just becomes a problem for any defense. And you got 2 guys that are super speed guys, and you got 1 guy that's like a bulldozer in cleats. So that's going to be a problem for teams if they get them in passing situations, especially third and 7 plus, 3rd and 8 plus. That's going to be a problem. So I'm looking forward to see that in the pass game. Secondary seems to be getting a little stronger as well, so that'll help out. As far as Scatterboo goes, Scatterboo's going to be a good back, but like anybody else, you need a line to get you to at least the second level. You can't be dodging guys in the backfield and become a great back. How to stop Derrick Henry, never let him get started. So it's going to be important for the Giants to be able to control the line of scrimmage, get their blocks. That's the offensive line and the tight ends, to give running backs, Scatterboo and whoever's touching the rock, a chance to get started and get headed downfield. Scatterboo, if he gets headed downfield, not a lot of guys are going to want to tackle him. He's a bowling ball. So, when that guy's built like that run that hard, you say you want to tackle him, but especially early in the season, you don't really want to tackle him.
Final thought, Howard. I would be remiss as we're running out of time if I didn't ask you about the tight ends. I don't know how much you were able to see what they were doing this spring, but we know that Theo Johnson showed flashes before he injured his foot last year. We know Daniel Bellinger's been around for a few years and is a real workhorse and a blue-collar guy. And then we know that they drafted Thomas Fidone out of Nebraska. Now, I don't know if you got too much of a look at him, but this guy's like 6'6", 6'7". He's got length. He's quite a guy, covered in tattoos. He's a character. I think people are going to like him.
It's going to be interesting to see how he and Theo, because they're both kind of almost the same person. They're tall, they're lanky, they run good routes. They'll be that intermediate, maybe even deep field threat if they got a little more speed that you can watch and have to play with. And as taller guys, considering that Russell is not the tallest guy, I'm not beating on Russell's height or anything, but that would give him, oh wow, he's right there. I can see him right away. Kind of targets, which would be important. As far as Belgium goes, he's a constant, man. He does a little bit of everything. He lines up in the backfield. He lines up at the wide position, and he comes in motion. He's doing everything they ask him to do, and no fault of his own. Every year they're going to continue to bring guys in. I remember it myself. So he's got to keep battling, keep fighting, keep being him, keep making himself, an available target in the pass game. But most of all, when they put you in the game to block somebody, make sure your man is down. Don't let him have any part of the ball.
Well, Howard, I appreciate the time as always. I know you got to run and catch that first tee. A lot of golf, I'm sure, before we get to the preseason, right?
I hope so. I hope so.
Giants legend Howard Cross joining us on the program tonight. We thank him for his time, and we'll talk to him again soon. Be well, Howard.
All right, Paul. See you later.
Folks, if you did not catch any part of the interview with Giants tight end or former tight end and Giants legend Howard Cross, by all means, if you joined us a little bit late, right after this program is over, go to the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel, seek out the Big Blue Breakdown live, and you'll be able to see the entire interview with Howard Cross. It'll be right there, uncut for you, and you'll be able to catch all of what Howard had to say, specifically earlier in his interview when he spoke about the Legends program that Brian Daboll has instituted, bringing back a lot of the Giants greats to talk to this year's team after practice. Now, let's get to some of your chats, and if anybody wants to give us a call or a video or audio call, as always, the slug is right there on the bottom of the screen. You see it? It's right there. All you got to do is click there, and you can get connected to the program, and we're certainly looking forward to talking to you. All right, let's see who we have here today. Oh, boy, this is pretty funny. Aiden Fink says, who has the most OTA passing yards in NFL history? I like that, Aiden, taking a shot at the people who keep those stats. That's a good chop. I will tell you, funny little story. Over the years, I think the best quarterback that I ever saw at practice in 7-on-7s was Jesse Palmer, who later became the Bachelor on television. And as you know, now is a college football analyst for ESPN. His 7-on-7s were just terrific. Of course, when he got into real games, he was not quite as productive. Let's see here. What do we have? Let's see. Aiden says, ironic that we have a quarterback with the last name Wilson that's positive. I think that's probably another wise, what am I looking for? A little bit of a wise comment about another fan who tends to call other programs that I am on. Aiden also says, good to hear from Howard. Yes, right there. Good to hear from Howard. And it always is good to hear from Howard Cross. Howard is one of the really great guys that I've worked with over the years, and very glad that he is part of the Giants radio network as the sideline reporter. We certainly have a great time during the course of the season on road trips and everything else. Just a wonderful, wonderful guy. And by the way, okay, I know he didn't land with the Giants, and so, a lot of you probably won't necessarily have great interest in this, but Howard's son, Howard Cross III, very, very happy, very, very happy for him. He did sign an undrafted rookie free agent contract with the Cincinnati Bengals, and my understanding is they are looking at him he's a defensive tackle, and they're looking at him as a 3 technique in the sub package. To rush the passer from the interior, which is really what he's best suited to do. And I'm rooting for him. I've met Howard Cross's son, Little Howard, as we like to call him, even though he's about 295 pounds. And I'm going to root for him. It doesn't matter where he's playing. I'm rooting for Howard Cross III to do really, really well. And so I just digress for a moment and give you that. We'll be here till at least the top of the hour. We got about 20 minutes or so, and I'll go longer if you guys have some questions or comments that you want to flash to me, either on the chat or with a phone call or a video call. I'm certainly be very, very happy to take them. Items today from the rest of the pressers. Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator, was stating the obvious when he said they got to make sure to maximize the players' skill sets. Says you always must evolve and can't stay the same. Now, why is this important? Well, one of the Giants players who quite honestly seemed to have a tough time adjusting to the system last year was Tay Banks over at corner. Really looked good as a rookie, and then last year struggled some. Now, maybe not as bad as some people would like to think, but he did struggle some. He was certainly inconsistent. I mean, that's indisputable. But Bowen was asked about Banks today in particular. And let me see if I can pull up my notes specifically on what he said, because I do think this is an important point. When he was talking about Banks, he said, let's see here. He said, again, I'm paraphrasing. He said he's locked in. And in terms of his approach, he says Banks wants to know more and more. And you can tell by how many questions and the types of questions that he's constantly asking this offseason. Bowen said there's growth every year. And now there are relationships this year because he's in his second year with the Giants, and that they can focus on the game and not trying to develop any kind of chemistry between him and the players because they've already got that. So I get the sense that Shane Bowen believes that a lot of the bumpy spots that Tay Banks had last year are going to be smoothed out. It seems that way. I have not spoken to Tay Banks. He's not been available to the media so far this spring, but it certainly sounds like both parties, and I've said this many times, folks, as a young player develops, both people have the responsibility to make it work. The player must show a willingness to do so and also must do everything he can to improve. The coach must do everything he can do to get that player to improve. And even if maybe the scheme is difficult or the player's skill set isn't fitting in quite well, they've got to find a happy medium. They've got to find a way, because ultimately the player's production needs to go up. If it doesn't, well, then either you wind up with a different player in there, or at some point you wind up with a different coach or a different coordinator in there. So if this is going to work for the Giants this year, in Banks' third season and in Bowen's second, both Bowen and Banks need to find a place where they can really gel and figure out what Banks does the best, what Bowen wants him to do that's going to be effective, and if they can make that mesh. And it does sound like they're getting into that area based on Bowen's comments today. So I think that's important. And that's not to say that they don't get along, because I don't want that perception to be out there. But Banks was a man press corner at Maryland. That's what he did. That's what he played under Wink Martindale in his rookie season. And he showed a lot of flashes. He looked pretty darn good. And then last year, when he was playing more off coverage and more zone, it didn't go quite as well. And I do think that Banks had a hard time adjusting to it. So we're going to see where this all turns out in 2025. I will say this. Those of you who understand the schematics of football know that if you can get more pressure on the quarterback, you can play more press man coverage, because you're going to have your corners jamming those receivers at the line to throw off the timing of their routes. And the quarterback, if he's getting too much heat too quickly, he's not going to be able to find those guys because they're thrown off their routes. It discombobulates the passing game. And the Giants certainly believe that they're going to have a better pass rush this year. It was pretty good last year, but they believe it's going to be even better this year. And that would certainly help, I would think, someone like Tay Banks. And by the way, Paul Dottino, he is adept at playing man. He's adept at playing off and zone. He has proven in his NFL career that he can do anything that they need him to do. He has terrific ball skills, gets after it, has a real good nose for getting to the football. Armand Dudo says, got to pressure the quarterback for sure. Hey, there's Big Blue. He says, so the defense are now Pirates. All right, let's get to that story. Might as well while we have a moment, since we were just talking about Shane Bowen. his son is playing ball, and they're the Pirates. They're baseball players, and they have a treasure chest. And so, what from the concept of having a treasure chest, Shane was saying, let's see, that he now has a slogan that he tells his players, and he's told the defense to pick it up: be a damn pirate. And that slogan is to remind the defense to be a pirate and go steal giveaways to put them in the treasure chest. It's a bit of a reach of a story, but I understand it, and whatever works. A lot of times you'll usually see these kinds of stories make their ways to a college football sideline or a college football bench, and guys will, get really hyped up about this mythical or hypothetical story, like they like to attach to certain types of plays or whatever it is. But in this case, the Giants appear to have adapted something along those lines. If it works and it gives them some positivity and it gives them something to work for, and it causes more turnovers because they were just right down in the basement of getting takeaways last year, well, then more power to them, because they need to get some. All right, let's see what else do we have here from Shane Bowen. While I'm on the topic of Bowen, says he wants to stay out of third and short situations. There were too many of those that allowed other teams to keep the ball. Also said, got to clean up on third and longs, specifically third and 11 or more. As you folks know, if you watched the Giants last year, they gave up way too many big plays on third down that allowed teams to stay on the field. And that's just not acceptable. Bowen continued to say, got to be better with takeaways, as we mentioned, must contain the run, and also explosive plays. All right, fine. Now, in terms of Debo, says he comes to work every day, practices hard, makes plays on the ball, not afraid to challenge, and an asset to the young cornerbacks in the room. The Giants, to a man, and this includes Russell Wilson, the quarterback, by the way, who was asked about the defense's improvement today. Now, why was he asked that? Well, it makes a lot of sense, because last year the Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Giants in overtime in a primetime game in Pittsburgh. Russell Wilson said it was a real chore dealing with Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns, one of the best edge rushers in the game, and knowing that Tibbs can come off the edge as well. Now, Wilson said, you're going to add Abdul Carter. You've got the addition of Debo and Holland in the secondary. You believe you'll get a bounce-back year out of Okereke. Russell Wilson himself was talking about how much better and how really good he thinks the Giants' defense can be based on his experience of playing against them last season. So, it's not just the defensive guys saying that they're going to be better, but here's a guy who played against them, sees the improvements, and understands that there's a lot more on that side of the ball. Isaac Morris says, hey, P-Dot, and says hi to everybody in the chat. Aiden Fink says, we're not the Bucks, we're the G-Men. That is true, Aiden. That is true. Oh, Mikey C. This is an interesting comment. I'm rooting for Evan Neal to take the left guard spot and Josh Azudu to take the right guard spot. Let's go Big Blue. I'm glad you brought that up. Brandon Brown is the Giants' assistant general manager. And he in particular, remember, he was part of the front office process that helped in personnel decisions with the Philadelphia Eagles before he came to the Giants. And so Brown was asked about Evan Neal in particular and the move to left guard. And here's what he had to say. He thinks that Neal's skill set definitely works at left guard. He says he can create movement at the line, and he can handle the interior pass rush by taking on the energized defensive line or linebacker blitzers. He said he could definitely absorb the attack He said now he has the physical tools to do it. He just needs consistency. And nearly that's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. Evan Neal has the ability, if you watch him play in and play out, he's got the ability to make some blocks. It's just that they're not always there. So, in any event, wants to make sure that he polishes up his technique. And he says it's going to be up to the coaches now to work with him and see if they can make that happen. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Mikey C, because that's certainly a very interesting storyline to watch during training camp when it finally opens late in July. Now, in terms of Joshua Ezeudu, he continues to play multiple spots during the spring. I don't know if that's good or bad for him. I mean, is it good if he's going to be a reserve? Then it's good that Ezeudu is practicing at multiple spots. But if you really want him to challenge for a starting job, be part of competition, and have a chance to push somebody or maybe steal a starting spot, then he's better off working in one spot. And then he could do everything humanly possible to try to seize that slot on the depth chart. But if you're just looking at him as a utility player and a backup, well, then I suppose it makes more sense to flop him around all over the line. To this point, he has been flopping around the line, which, in my opinion, tells you they're looking at him as the 6th or 7th lineman on the team. Let's see here. Isaac Morris says, sorry, I'm really late. I'll catch up later. Hey, don't worry about it. That's okay. Armand Duda says, I like it. Be a pirate. And by the way, Isaac, don't worry about it. Again, if you're late, first part of the show, we talked all about what went on at OTA practice today. Gave you all the highlights from the offense and the defense. When this program's over, go back to the YouTube channel, New York Giants on SI, Big Blue Breakdown Live, and you can replay that stuff. And then, I don't know, it was about 15 to 20 minutes in. We played for you the Howard Cross interview, and that's it's there. The Howard Cross interview is all there for you, and I think you would enjoy that. Pirates be stealing the booty. Exactly. That's the whole concept behind it. Mikey C. Elijah Chapman. Chapman will be in the rotation. That might be men prediction. Had a nice pass breakup today at the line of scrimmage, but listen, the Giants have a lot more competition on the defensive line than they did last year. And if Chapman is going to get a spot, he is really going to have to earn it. Okay? And I'm not kidding. He's really going to have to earn it because there are too many defensive linemen to choose from. I mean, look at it this way. Dexter Lawrence is in there. Roy Robertson Harris is in there. Darius Alexander, Chauncey Golston, DJ Davidson, Jeremiah Ledbetter, Nacho, Jordan Riley. I mean, there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys, defensive linemen we're talking about now. A lot of guys who are going to want roster spots. So if Elijah Chapman is going to be on this team in 2025, he is going to have to earn it. I think he's a very willing player to do so. So I would not rule it out. I think Mikey C, he certainly could make the team. But do I want to go out on a limb right now and say it's for sure? I don't think I can do that yet. I think I need to see that competition kind of work its way out. All right. Armand Duda says, let's see what else you got here. Tied with Baltimore for most takeaways in 23-24, and were in the basement last season. That's what I was trying to tell you before. They were cellar dwellers. Here's the problem, Armand. Armand, you can't predict takeaways. You can't. Are there things you can do that can lean you toward takeaways? Yes. How do you lean toward takeaways? Well, you get more pressure on the quarterback to force him to make mistakes and throw the ball errantly. How else do you get takeaways? Well, you play a lot of zone defense. That particular thing did not work for the Giants last year at all. How else do you get takeaways? Well, if you're talking about fumbles, you strip the ball, get the ball out. And then if the other thing is, if you're talking about interceptions, the other way to get them, and this is something that Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator, has actually talked about a little bit. He wants to see more. He'd like to see more hand fighting from his secondary at the point of attack. And I think that is certainly something we need to see. The Giants need to close better on the ball and then get their hands in there. And if you can knock that ball free, jostle it, tip it up in the air, you'll get some interceptions that way. Okay, what else do we have here? Isaac Moore, anything to the rumor with Pitts? I don't understand that one. Also, Isaac says you see Hyatt making catches out there. There's no question about it. Jay Hyatt is making a lot of catches this spring. He's looking really good. There's no mistaking it. He's having a very good spring. Malik Neighbors has a toe injury. He suffered it during the season last year, so they're simply keeping him out. He's in gear. He's on the field. Okay, he's out there. He's in the huddle with the first team offense and then comes out of the huddle and stands back and watches the play. But he is totally involved, taking mental reps and getting right in there in the huddle with his offensive teammates, which is a really good sign. You want to see him involved. You want to see him eager and trying to pick up whatever he can, especially when Russell Wilson's in the huddle, a veteran quarterback like that. You want him to be as in the mix as possible. But without Neighbors running routes, that's allowed more snaps for another receiver. And that guy happens to be Jalen Hyatt. And he is making the most of it. He has had a really good spring. Mikey C says, it's bad. Let him play right guard. He top 3 in good quick feet on the team. Okay, again, Mikey C, I'm not sure where you're going here. If you're talking about Elijah Chapman based on your last message, that does not make any sense at all because Chapman is a defensive tackle. So, Paul, is that your pup? No, I don't have a dog. Isaac, I'm sorry. I don't know what you mean there. Mikey C. Chapman can play edge on rundowns to give the 0-5 break, also on passing downs inside. Mikey C, listen. Elijah Chapman is a great story. He's an undersized defensive tackle. Is it possible that he could make this 53 and be a backup? Yes, it is. I don't see any world in which he is a full-time starting defensive tackle on this team. I don't. He was able to be a reserve and even started a game last year on a team that was 3-14. This team doesn't plan on being 3-14 this year. They need to get better. And if they're going to get better and have an improved win-loss record, one of the positions that they've got to raise the level of play in is defensive tackle. So that's as far as I'm going to go. I don't want to knock down Elijah Chapman because I like him very much. He's a really good guy. And I do think that, he could very much be a reserve in the 53. But if he's not and doesn't win the competition, then I certainly think it would behoove the Giants to try to keep him on the practice squad. Hopefully, no one will take him. Big Blue says, your impression on Dart's throwing, velocity and accuracy so far? Pretty good. I like the fact that he spins the ball well. It's a very easily catchable ball. Tight spiral. It lands in the hands very nicely. He can drop it in the bucket. He could throw it with zip. He could throw it long enough. There's really nothing there's nothing to dislike about Jackson Dart's tools. That's pretty apparent. In fact, let me go back to my notes. Mike Kafka said something, and this is not directly related to his throws, but Kafka was asked about Dart in particular, about the Giants' pursuit of him. And let me see exactly what he said here, because I don't want to misquote him. I paraphrase these pressers, and I put the information up on Twitter because I want everyone to try to get this info as soon as they can. I don't want you to have to wait for the writers to get it to you. So I usually do like a live paraphrase on my Twitter at Giants WFAN. All right, and talking about Dart. Let's see here. He said, in terms of about Dart, real excited to get him. Very deep process to screen the quarterbacks. Great to get a guy the Giants really liked. Knew he was the choice relatively early. Gives you explosive plays, good in the 2-minute drill, handles duress, can make off-schedule plays, can play in and out of the pocket. That's a pretty darn good checklist. Okay? It really is. And Big Blue, I think I mentioned it last week on the show. There were 30-mile-an-hour gusting winds at the Meadowlands outside, and Dart was able to throw the ball effectively, accurately, and long downfield despite the winds. His passes cut the wind very nicely, and it did not impact his accuracy. That is a very big deal when playing at MetLife Stadium. Armin Duda, zone defense definitely didn't go well for us last season. Laugh out loud. I have faith we will improve all around in defense this year, though. I agree with everything you just said, Armin. There's not much to dispute right there. Isaac Moore says, you see any other wide receivers playing well in camp? Again, I'd say the guys who have stuck out for me have been Hyatt, Slayton, Smith-Morset, and Felton has flashed some. And so has Bly. Yeah. Those were the last two guys. Felton and Bly have flashed some, not consistently making plays all the time, but has flashed some. And I'll be watching them going forward. But those would be the guys who have really done the most in training camp, that have, in my opinion, probably opened the most eyes. Oh, Isaac says he thought he heard squealing. Oh, that may be the chair that I'm on. I have a chair that's got wheels on it, and sometimes it squeaks a little bit while I'm moving the chair just a tad. Mikey C says, I'm talking about Azudu, quick feet. Yeah, you're right. That's true. No. Mikey C, you're right. Joshua Azudu is a very good athlete with very quick feet for his size. There is no question about that. Absolutely. You're spot on. Everyone in the Giants organization would agree with that assessment. But it takes more than just athleticism and quick feet to be the guy, who's going to win a position on the starting offensive line. We'll see. Again, he suffered through injuries his first couple of years, but he's also been forced to move around a lot. I stand by what I said about him before. If he's going to be a valuable reserve, then it's good that they move him around a lot. If the idea is to have him potentially win a starting job, then he should concentrate on one position. How is Bo looking? I'm a Notre Dame fan. He's been noticeable a couple of times over the course of the spring. I've seen him make a couple of catches, but not nearly as much as the other players I just mentioned at wide receiver a few moments ago. Amon says, yes, Armand, you're right. Being able to throw in the Meadowlands wind is very important. There's no question about that. Nope. No question at all about that. It is critical. All right. I'll tell you what. I'll give you guys a couple more minutes here. I think we may cut off this program in just a couple more minutes. We don't have any audio calls. We don't have any video calls. No sense in keeping it going. So, but we'll go as long as you guys want to keep a stream here. We'll doesn't look like though there's much. It's petering out. Isaac Moore says, who does Dort remind you of, past Giants or other quarterbacks? I don't know that he does remind me of anybody in particular. He probably has a skill set that more closely reminds me of Jeff Hostetler, but he's not the same frame. Hostetler was longer. He was a little bit taller. But in terms of his skills, Hostetler could throw it long. So can Dart. Hostetler could throw it short with zip. So can Dart. Hostetler had touch on the ball. So does Dart. Both guys can roll out of the pocket and run if they have to. So can Dart. Both guys can extend plays by rolling out and throwing on the run. Yeah, I would say Jeff Hostetler in terms of skill set. Dart is probably more like Hostetler than any other Giants quarterback that I remember seeing in my now 43 seasons covering the team. Sobas, I don't know, Big Blue. Sobastin? I have no idea what that means. So beating I don't know what that means either, Big Blue. I'm sorry. Isaac Moore is talking about Carson Wentz. He was never a Giant. That's not relevant to the question. Big Blue says beating the Colts last year did not hurt us in the draft. Oh, well, the Giants got Abdul Carter. Now, if they had fallen out of the top three and then not gotten Carter, well, I think we all believe that there was a line of delineation after the top three picks, right? Ward and Hunter Carter or Carter Hunter, that was the cream of the creme. So, yeah, I agree with you. I don't think beating the Colts last year hurt the Giants. They still wound up with a blue chipper. And we'll know at some point down the road, not now, not the end of this year, not next year. We're going to know 3, 4, 5 years down the road how this really did work out for the Giants. Armand Duda says, any idea on who Knicks' next head coach should be? Not a fan of firing Tibbs. This is a Giant show, Armand, but I am a huge New York Knicks fan. And Red Holtzman, as much as I love them, is not coming back from the ghosts of years past to coach the Knicks. I'm a big Tibbs fan. I'm very grateful for what he did to resuscitate the franchise. And I'm puzzled and baffled and very disappointed that he was let go. And right now, I have no thoughts at all about who the next Knicks coach would be. I do know that there are several candidates who have winning records and resumes, even guys who have gone to conference and championship finals, and even some guys who have rings. I think maybe that was the thing that did Tibbs in. I don't know this. I don't cover. Obviously, I don't cover the Knicks. I'm a huge Knicks fan, but I don't work around the team. I don't cover them for a living. But I wonder if there weren't so many high-level resumes amongst head coaches on the market, I wonder if Tibbs would have been fired. I think sometimes the whole grass is greener kind of thing. I just wonder. Because sometimes you get a situation where somebody, and this goes for any sport, so I'll say this now on a Giant show. When people say, I don't like the coach, I think I want to get rid of him. Well, then the first question is, well, who do you want? And you look at the list of available people. If the list of available people is not very appetizing, sometimes you'll wind up keeping the guy you have. But with a list of available head coaches in the NBA who have done some pretty big things, I think that's part of the reason why Tibbs was let go. Because they're looking, the front office is looking at some glamour guys who are free agent head coaches. If they weren't there, they might have stuck with the guy they had. Armand Duda says, never be another Red. No, Red Holtzman was a one-of-a-kind. Hall of Famer, by the way. Armand says also, as Giant once said about Green Bay, the grass is greener in my butt. Yeah, okay. Yeah, exactly. All right, folks, that'll do it for this edition of the Big Blue Breakdown Live. Again, if you missed any part of the program earlier tonight at the beginning of the show, we talked about practice and the OTAs today. And then also we had a really terrific interview, about 20 minutes, with Giants legend Howard Cross, who spoke to us about what he did in his talk with the Giants players after practice the other day, part of an ongoing program that head coach Brian Daboll has with the Giants legends, as he is bringing guys in from the top 100 to talk to the team. So I thought that was pretty cool. He also Howard Cross gave his opinion of what he saw and what he thinks about this year's prospects for the New York Giants. So that's all going to be there. We'll be back again next week, and it will be once again Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel, right here, the Big Blue Breakdown Live, because next Thursday is the next open practice and available media day. So it'll give us a whole lot more to talk about, just like we did tonight. So we'll be back with you again next Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, live for another edition of the Big Blue Breakdown. I'm Paul Dottino, and we will see you next time, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. We really do appreciate it.